Welcome to the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. This is our 163rd episode on August 31st, 2023. My name is Andy Zee. I'm the host of the show, coming to you from Los Angeles, California.
And my name is Sunsara Taylor. I am the co-host of the Revolution Nothing Less show. And right up front, before we tell you about today's show, I want to hold this up. It is beautiful. It's in print. It's a new broadsheet of a proclamation that's been on Revcoms.us since July 4th that says, we need and we demand a whole new way to live, a fundamentally different system. It is really beautiful. It's postable. It needs to get all over the walls across this country, everywhere. Every page is postable. I just wanted to hold it up. We'll talk more about it at the end of the show.
This is a very important document where, as you said, we're going to talk about it more later in today's show, but it ends with the demand that says the existing capitalist imperialist system and the institutions of government in this country must be abolished and dismantled and replaced by a new socialist system based on the Constitution for the new socialist republic in North America. This is important because this is a time, as we've spoken of many times on this show, when revolution has become more possible because of the great divide at the top of U.S. society.
And that is the mission of this show. We are about making a real revolution, just like our name says, because nothing less than that will deal with the unending injustice, white supremacy, exploitation, male supremacy, America terrorizing and plundering the rest of the world that is built into the system of capitalism, imperialism. We're about this system being overthrown and brought down and replaced. And so later in the show, we're going to have a couple of updates from revolution clubs working on this revolution around the country.
Yeah, and today is really a special show, different than most of our shows, because we are going to feature the last question and the incredible answer in interviews that Sunsara and I did this past fall with the revolutionary leader Bob Avakian, who is the author of the Constitution for the New Socialist Republic in North America, who has developed a strategy for revolution, who's developed a whole different framework for human emancipation. Rather than my saying more about this now, watch this answer, and it's going to take you on a journey. It's going to give you a sense of this revolution and a hope for the future. You know, you've been doing this for a long time. You've been leading the revolution. You've been a leader before that. And I think people would want to know a bit more about, even as it's been contained in what you said, what sustains you? What makes you not only not give up, but continue to strive and develop the science and to struggle with the masses of people, to struggle with all of us who are following you, and just stating a willingness to struggle with all these masses to get into the one way out for them, and then also maybe say something, even as you've just covered a lot of it, to those people who are in this movement and those people who don't even know about it yet but need to be in this movement of where are they going to get that inspiration, that courage, that conviction, that sustenance to really put it all on the line, as you just said, to really live and if necessary, make whatever sacrifice is required to bring about a world where humanity could really flourish?
Well, I mean, as the first part, the most fundamental thing in terms of anyone being sustained is having a scientific approach to reality, being grounded in that and consistently applying a scientific method and approach to understand the contradictions that you're up against, to understand the deeper driving forces of things, to understand that everything we've been talking about, all the horrors, are rooted in this system, and that there is a way to eliminate all this by uprooting and overthrowing this system and replacing it with something much better. So in most, the most important thing and the most basic thing is having that scientific method and approach, but it's not something you get once. You have to keep on struggling to apply it in a living way to a constantly changing reality, and to deepening your understanding of that scientific method, including learning from your mistakes, the things you did wrong, but also learning from the things you did right and what results that produced, and then building on that. So that's the most fundamental thing. As far as more personal thing, I think it's the same as everybody else who's part of this. You come to see that this world is, first of all, intolerable, and second of all, that it's unnecessary. And once you see those two things, then you can't, not apply yourself to actually bringing about the change that's needed, the fundamental revolutionary change that's needed. It's just, it's again, the science keeps you grounded, keeps you going through all the difficulties and contradictions. But there's a basic stand that what the people in the world are being put through is completely intolerable and completely unnecessary. I mean, I could talk about some of my own personal development in this, but as I've said before, I consider myself extremely fortunate. I grew up in a city which, on the one hand, was an intellectual center. I grew up in a middle-class family. I lived in the Berkeley Hills, where all the better-off people live. And because of that, I was able to be exposed to a lot of, knowledge, but not just knowledge. A lot of intellectual curiosity was encouraged, and I was able to, have a lot of resources to read books, and I used to go to Shakespeare plays, and I went to plays by Leroy Jones too, and he was called Leroy Jones. But I had, was very encouraged and was interested in a broad array of cultural and intellectual things. And I had the situation where I could do that because of how I grew up. But then, my life changed dramatically. I mean, for one thing, I'll give my parents credit. Partly because my mom was religious, very religious. My dad was religious. My mom was very religious. They sent me to YMCA camp from the time I was 9 years old. And the one thing really good about that, or the one thing that really stands out, is that the YMCA in Berkeley, which is the one sponsoring the camp, was integrated. You go to the Y was integrated. You go to the camp that I went to for 5 years, it was integrated. And not just were there, for example, black people at the camp, but the cabins that you slept in, the group you were part of was integrated. So, I still remember, I won't say his full name. I remember one dude, Wesley, was in the cabin with me and his cousin, for the years I went there. And, to be honest, when I was a kid, I was kind of spoiled too, coming up, and they didn't like me that much, but I had some interactions with them that made an impression on me. Like one time I got really homesick at camp. And I knew that some of these kids didn't like me very much, and so I when I think I was 9 or 10, I went and I threw myself down in my bunk in the cabin, and either Wesley or his cousin came in and started comforting me and saying, you're not that bad, you shouldn't feel that bad. People don't hate you that much, and it made me feel better. And it made a deep impression on me, and so did the whole thing of going to camp. But, and then I went to middle school or junior high school, as it was called, and, there were very few black people there, but in ninth grade, my best friend, John, was black, and, we got pretty close. We did some singing stuff together and had a lot of fun together, and that had an impression on me. And then I consider, like, one of the great things about Berkeley was that it only has one public high school. And so when you go to that public high school, you're thrown together with everybody. Like there was 3 junior highs when I went there. They're not there now in the same way. But it was Garfield, where I went to, which was overwhelmingly white, some Latinos, and about 25 black people. Then there was Willard and Burbank, where most of the Latinos and large numbers of black people went, especially Burbank, which was in southwest Berkeley. And we all came together. At that time, the high school was like three years, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. We all came together. And I still remember my first day of high school, they had an orientation. And, if you came from Garfield, there was all this racist shit. And like, oh, man, you're going to go down to Berkeley High, and there's going to be all these black kids there from Burbank and Willard, and you're going to get your ass kicked and all this kind of stuff. And so, they had an assembly the first day for all the new students. And so I got there late. And I was looking for a seat, and I couldn't find it. I mentioned this in my memoir. But, I was looking for a seat, and I couldn't find a seat. And I'm walking all around looking for a seat. And then I went by this one guy who was kind of slouched against the wall like this, and his feet were sticking out. And I said, I don't want to get into any shit here. So I walked very gingerly around him. And as I did, he turned to me and said, "Hey, man, you stepped on my dogs." I didn't step on his feet at all, just to be clear. I said, "No, I didn't." He said, "Yes, you did, man. You stepped on my dogs." And then that was all there was to it. Now, this dude, whose name was Odell, he and I became friends later on. We were in a singing group together when I was a senior in high school. You know, I used to see him out in the hallway, you know, because he didn't go to class all that much. But, you know, he was creative. So I'd see him out in the hallway when I'm going to class, you know, and I'd say, "Hey, Odell, what are you doing, man? How come you're not in class?" He'd say, "I'm writing songs." So, you know, then he'd be writing songs for our group, you know. I remember he had one that was called "Chuck is Good for You." It was all about, you know, eating good food was good for you. But so, you know, that was Odell, you know, and you go through changes. At first it's like, "You stepped on my dogs." And then we're in a singing group together and they're telling me, "Hey, man, step back here a little bit. We don't want your white ass sticking out too much when we're doing our routines." So this is all part of the you know, the really great experience you have. You know, I had many experiences like this. I made a lot of friends. I didn't make friends to make a point. I made friends because I liked people. You know, some of them were white, some of them were Japanese, some of them were Latino, a number of them were black. But they were people I liked. I got to know them in sports. I got to know them in singing class and this kind of thing. They became my friends. You know what? Friends are people in your heart, okay? Mm-hmm. I don't mean something superficial. You know, "Oh, I got a bunch of black friends." I mean, these are people that are in your heart, okay? These people that, you know, you go to their house and they come to your house and you talk all kinds of shit with each other about what's going on, you know, and you talk on the phone back in those days. And I don't know what the fuck we talked about, but we talk about it for hours. You know, so these are people in your heart. And then you see what people are being put through. Just, you know, the daily shit and the bigger shit. And, you know, my mom always taught me, you know, as a good Christian, that you should care about other people. That's the kind of Christianity she was about. You should care about other people. So, I cared about my friends, not just because my mom told me to, although that had an influence on me, but I cared about my friends because they were here. These are my friends, and you're doing all this shit. Plus, I loved the culture they were part of. I loved being in a singing group. I mean, I could get into old stories about that. You know, it was a lot of fun. You know, I can remember, I guess I am going to tell a story. I remember one time we went to Live Oak Park, which is the main park one of the main parks in Berkeley, and I could tell more stories about that, but we don't have time for that. And our group was going to do sing for a dance there. And we're walking, you know, past the basketball courts, getting ready to go into the auditorium to do the singing. And and our lead singer was my friend Sam. And a friend of his was playing basketball, and he's coming over to get a drink of water. And he says, "Sam, what the fuck are you doing here?" He said, "Well, I'm here to sing with my group." "You can't sing, Sam." "Yeah, I can, man." So then they had to do a Spaniel song. They had to have a sing-off. Guy challenged Sam to sing. So they did a verse and a half, and the other guy gave up because Sam could really sing. So, you know, this was all, you know, I love this. This was all part of, like, you know, something that, you know, just, made my life rich. And then you're going to tell me that you're going to do this and that to my friends. And then you're going to do this and that to all these other people that are just like my friends. I mean, Sam took me out to his house. We went out to East Oakland. He lived right at the edge of East Oakland, right by 98th Avenue, I think it is. And in those days, San Leandro was right next to East Oakland. And you didn't go in San Leandro if you were black back in those days. And there was a creek and a fence right by where Sam lived. And that was the dividing line. You know, you didn't go into San Leandro. Here, my friend Sam, he couldn't go into San Leandro. It was right across the creek because he'd get jumped on. So I'm saying, what kind of fucking world is this? So that was a big thing to me, you know. And then, you know, the civil rights movement was jumping off, and then, you know, more militant and revolutionary forces like the Black Panther Party came forward, and I was in college at that time. You know, I had recovered from a serious illness, and I had an ambition. I wanted to learn a whole bunch of languages. I wanted to be a Renaissance man, you know, be able to speak at least 5 or 6 languages and read literature in all these different languages, you know, and I was taking all kinds of literature courses, and I had a favorite professor who was Italian, and all this kind of stuff. I was enjoying my time, but I also was still thinking about all these big things going on. And then the Black Panther Party came along, and I was devastated by the death of Malcolm X, like a lot of people were, millions and millions of people, and more than that around the world. And the Black Panther Party came along, and, well, I could go back, just since you asked me this question, I'm going to get into it. So I mentioned my friend Billy, so about when I was still in college, but just, maybe about 1965 or something, I was down at this rec center in Southwest Berkeley. It used to be called the Grove Rec Center, but it's not called Grove anymore. But I was down there, and my friend Billy was playing basketball. He was a great basketball player. And then, after they finished up, he introduced me to this dude named Weasel, whose nickname was Weasel. And they'd played against each other in high school. Weasel went to McClymonds High School in West Oakland, and Billy went to Berkeley High, and they played a great game. But unfortunately, McClymonds won, and our high school that Billy played for lost by 1 point in overtime. And it was a bitter thing, but they were friends, Billy and Weasel. So Billy and I talked a while, and then he introduced me to Weasel, and Weasel and I started talking. And, Weasel was interested, as I was, in all this shit going on. So, we kept on talking, and then he asked me to give him a ride home. So I gave him a ride home. We went over to his house, and we stayed up till 2 o'clock in the morning drinking coffee and talking with his mom, as well as him, of course. The three of us talking about what was going on with black people in America and all the shit this imperialist ruling class was doing in Vietnam and the Congo and all this kind of stuff. I still remember that very vividly, this staying up till 2 in the morning. And then I hung out with Weasel for a while. And then one day he said to me, there's going to be this cultural program going on at the community college in Oakland. I think it's called Merit now. And so he said, why don't you come on down there? It's an Afro-American cultural program. So I went down there, and, I was, I think, one of 2 white people in the audience, but that was fine. And Bobby Seale turned out to be the MC. And he was hilarious. I mean, he could do great impressions of all kinds of people. He did an impression of Bill Cosby back in the day. He was down on Bill Cosby for doing I Spy, being a CIA agent. And he was mocking Bill Cosby, imitated John Kennedy, all this kind of shit. And I thought he was great, as an MC of this program. And so then the program ended, and I'm starting to leave. And this guy comes up to me, and he says, "Who are you, Socrates?" And I said, "No." And then it turned out it was Huey Newton. And then we started having a discussion about what's going on with black people, black liberation, revolution. And he said to me, "Are you part of the CP?" Because he's trying to figure out why I was there. First, he wanted to know if I was Socrates. Then he wanted to know if I was in the CP. "Are you in the Communist Party?" And I said, "No." He said, "That's good. They're not revolutionary." "Are you in Progressive Labor Party?" I said, "No." He said, "That's good. They pretend to be revolutionary, but they're not revolutionary either." And then we got into a discussion, and he was running down about how revolution could succeed, especially for black people in America, because although they might be a minority in America, at least 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the world was with them. So it's possible they could make revolution here. And that was, somewhat naive. It wasn't a fully developed scientific approach, but it made an impression on me. And this whole discussion made an impression on me. And then I was working at Ramparts magazine, and Eldridge Cleaver got out of prison on the basis of getting a job at Ramparts. So we were talking all the time, and I used to go over to his house. And as I mentioned, I talked to him on the phone sometime. And, and this just got me, much deeper into understanding that we needed a revolution. And I just bring it to a close by saying none of the things that I've mentioned that propelled me in this direction have gotten better. It's not that, there's more black middle class, there's more women able to do this and that, but these terrible forms of oppression, not just to people, the whole Vietnam War thing, mm-hmm. All the atrocities that you learned about. I took that war very seriously. I took time to make up my mind. When I was in the free speech movement, we had a sit-in the administration building for a couple of days and finally won our demands. But all the leaders of it, or almost all of them, were against the Vietnam War. And I remember Mario Savio, the main leader, got up and talked about what the administration was doing against us was the same type of thing that our government was doing in Vietnam. And I kind of didn't like that because I wasn't sure, how I felt about Vietnam. But I was studying. I was going into the library and I was reading up on all the different, things that were being analyses about Vietnam, and I was reading about the commission that was set up to oversee the situation in Vietnam, International Commission, and they were reporting that it was the U.S. side that was violating all the agreements. These kind of things are going around in my mind, and I'm thinking and studying and everything. And then, as I've said a number of times, I woke up in the spring of 1965. Got the newspaper, and here's this great big article about Selma, Alabama, and the Pettus Bridge and the attack on the civil rights marchers, and that was it for me. I said, how in the fuck can these people, this government that claims it's bringing freedom to the people of Vietnam and getting rid of these terrible communist tyrants, how in the fuck can they be bringing freedom to the people in Vietnam? Why would they even be trying to do that when look what they're doing in this country and look what the government is allowing to go on right here? And that was it for me. So, all these things came together, but none of this has gotten better. If anything, it's gotten worse. The environment, the whole thing of the environment was just starting, the environmental danger and crisis was just beginning to be recognized at that time. Some people saw where things were headed. But it's gotten obviously worse over decades, and it's accelerating all the time. And, the danger of nuclear war, all these things have not gotten better. And, the people that I care about, that I've learned about, not just the people I grew up with, but the people around the world that I've learned to care about, when I've learned about their situation. To me, for me to give up would be betraying all those people. It'd be like turning your back on your best friends. So it's fundamentally the science that's the foundation, and that you need to keep deepening and applying and grasping and learning, or else you will go off course. But there's also a thing that I think everybody who gets into this revolution feels that right here you feel like what people are being put through, you just can't go along with it. You just can't stand by and watch it happen. You can't live with yourself if you don't do everything you can, especially when you know it's unnecessary and a better world actually is possible. You can't give up. Yes, you can get discouraged. When there's defeats, when there's setbacks, big ones, gigantic ones, like when China went off the socialist road, was taken off the socialist road, and the revolution was betrayed there, and capitalism was restored, and it's emerged as an imperialist power instead of a revolutionary stronghold for the people of the world. Those things are discouraging, but you bear down with the science, and you keep in your heart why you got into this in the first place, and what it is you're in this for. And that's why I don't give up. So that's what I would say about that.
So, Andy, I just have to begin by reacting to what we just heard. I mean, B.A. really bears his soul. He really bears his heart in this culmination of this 3-part interview that we did with him. And you get a sense both of the incredible heart for humanity that's driving him, and the science. The heart and the head really comes through in this. And you see in B.A. really the same person who, as a young person, just couldn't accept a world where his friend Sam, because he's black, couldn't go across the river into San Leandro. And over the years, B.A. has been working for years and years. He's put in the work for decades, fighting for a revolution, fighting to change this, to break down all that's concentrated in that border that Sam couldn't cross, and all the other borders, all the other divisions that B.A. has come to learn about across the world. And the only thing that has changed is the scope of his concern and the depth of the science that he has forged. He's the same person, and it's really just an incredible, it's an incredible introduction to him. It's an incredible invitation into the fight that he's dedicated his life to.
Yeah, when I asked him what sustains you, I had no expectation of the breadth and the depth of that answer. And it was just like, I felt like, somebody said, well, let's just get on this roller coaster. It's really quick. And then you just went on this train, and it was like, it's really incredible. And, what you said about the stories, it has led me to reflect quite a bit on this. When he said at the end, you feel like what people are being put through, you just can't go along with it. You just can't stand by and watch it happen. You can't live with yourself if you don't do everything you can. Just stop there. This is something that humanity needs. A time of such selfishness that permeates the society, and yet the stakes are so high in terms of the threat of floods, burning, fire, all this stuff that's happening to humanity. To have somebody who has dedicated their lives to solving the problem that they can't live with themselves if they don't do that. And then he goes on to say, when you know it's unnecessary and a better world is actually possible, well, that's the work he's actually done. That's the work he's actually done, and that's what people get through all of the interviews. So I share with you being tremendously moved by this.
Yeah, we wanted to take a few minutes following this excerpt that we played for you, to talk about the importance of spreading these interviews and really making BA known throughout society, and making these interviews seen by tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. And just think about what you just experienced. Think about how it made you feel. Think about what it challenged in you, and think about the impact of millions seeing this. This has got to be our mission, all of us. Even if you're just learning about this for the first time, and especially if you've been familiar with this, you've seen this before, you've been part of this movement, all of us need to go and fight to spread this right now and get BA and get these interviews seen, engaged, debated, a pull of attraction, of controversy in society. And this needs to happen now. It needs to happen in an urgent way, because we are living, as we've been emphasizing on this show, and as BA goes into deeply in these interviews, we're living in a time where the future is really hanging in the balance. And the future is being shaped. And we are living in one of those rare times where decades, the kinds of change that usually takes decades to come about, is happening in months and increasingly in weeks. And this is going to become even more intense. And so these interviews need to be shaping how millions are processing what they're living through. They need to be shaping what they're doing with their lives. They need to know that we have this leader who is like no one else who's ever existed in this country or in the world today.
So, Sunsara, just how you put it, that the future really is hanging in the balance, the existential crisis that humanity faces, and the time that we live in right now, when the possibility exists for actually making a revolution. People go to those stories that we've been talking about, and you travel with BA, and he's telling you how he changed, how these experiences he had changed him, and you're there for the ride, but you feel that like how things are could be really different. The whole permanence of just all the crappy relations people have and all the shit that comes at people from the system, all of that could just melt away while you're watching. And so I want to just say to people watching this who felt this, that the existential question for humanity is also an existential question for you. What are you going to do with your life? Here we are. The future's hanging in the balance, as I've said 3 times. You need to act on that. And a place to start is with getting these interviews out. If this section of these interviews spoke to you, you need to get it out there, because there's thousands and thousands of people who feel like you do too, but they don't know about this. So that's what we're struggling with you, telling you to. And what could really to do, and it could really make a tremendous difference. I'll say this, there'll be no revolutionary change, no other way we could be living if there aren't thousands and millions of people getting into these interviews, getting into Bob Avakian, and that's going to be a doorway into the revolution and to changing the world.
And as you take these out, you're going to encounter people who are really moved by what they hear from BA, who really love this person, what it opens them up to. Yes, who are challenged, who have differences, questions, all of that, but who respond well. And we need to gather all of those people and involve them in spreading this and organize them to be a force making this known. At the same time, if you take this out, you're going to run into people who hate what BA is saying and even hate him, run a lot of bullshit, snarky shit, blah, blah, blah. He's a cult leader. He's an old white man. I don't need to listen to him. And fundamentally, the most important thing to understand is that the love for BA and the hate that comes at BA, all of it is for the same fundamental reason. Because what he concentrates, what he is fighting for, what he is struggling with all of us to take up and apply ourselves to is the most radical transformation in the world. It's a break with everything about how this world conditions people to think, relate to each other. It's the most radical revolution and emancipatory project. And some people want that, and some people are terrified of it. And when they tear down BA, that's what they're tearing down. And we need to build up the love as we take this out. So not only do you need to spread this, you need to have the courage and the honesty and the integrity to recognize what you just saw and the integrity and principle that BA has and answer the bullshit when it comes, and don't bow down to it, and organize and mobilize others who are getting turned on by this and work with us here on this show to spread these.
So with that, I want to leave you with the last couple minutes of the last question of the 3 interviews we did, and let that sink in, and then do exactly what Sunsara just said.
And the people that I care about, that I've learned about, not just the people I grew up with, but the people around the world that I've learned to care about when I've learned about their situation. To me, for me to give up would be betraying all those people. It'd be like turning your back on your best friends. So it's fundamentally the science that's the foundation, and that you need to keep deepening and applying and grasping and learning, or else you will go off course. But there's also a thing, but I think everybody who gets into this revolution feels that right here you feel like what people are being put through, you just can't go along with it. You just can't stand by and watch it happen. You can't live with yourself if you don't do everything you can, especially when you know it's unnecessary and a better world actually is possible. You can't give up. Yes, you can get discouraged. When there's defeats, when there's setbacks, big ones, gigantic ones, like when China went off the socialist road, was taken off the socialist road, and the revolution was betrayed there, and capitalism was restored, and it's emerged as an imperialist power instead of a revolutionary stronghold for the people of the world. Those things are discouraging, but you bear down with the science, and you keep in your heart why you got into this in the first place, and what it is you're in this for. And that's why I don't give up. So that's what I would say about that.
Last week, we featured 2 reports from the Revolution Club in Los Angeles and the Revolution Club in Chicago. And again, this week we have reports, 2 reports, one from Los Angeles and another one from Chicago.
So we're going to start here in Los Angeles with a press conference that was held by Lucha Bright and others with the Revolution Club here. Last week, we showed footage of a fascist march on the LA School Board, the United School Board School District gathering, that was counter-protested, including by members of the Revolution Club, including by Lucha Bright, who was viciously, brutally assaulted by the LAPD and wrongfully arrested. And this week, they are in the headlines. Let's watch.
Activists are calling for an LAPD officer to be fired for allegedly brutalizing a protester outside LAUSD headquarters. The alleged incident happened during dueling demonstrations last Tuesday when parental rights groups squared off against a group of LGBTQ supporters over a potential transgender notification policy. The group, Revolution Club LA, says Lucha Bright was also unjustly arrested. Bright says she is suing the LAPD. The group is demanding the charges against her and 2 others who were arrested be dropped.
Totally unhinged violence. There was absolutely nothing that precipitated it on our part. There was no reason for it. It was just gratuitous violence against us.
We have reached out to the LAPD, but the department says it does not comment on pending litigation.
My name is Lucha Bright. Last week, I was brutalized and arrested by the LAPD just blocks from here. Today, I am demanding firing the officer, whose badge number is 20068, who stabbed his nightstick into my chest and repeatedly hit me with it. I am demanding that the charges against me be dropped and against another person who was charged that day. And I will be filing a lawsuit against the LAPD for violating my civil rights. On August 22nd, the LAPD violently attacked those of us who were standing up for the LGBTQ community. We were standing against 150 MAGA Christian fundamentalist, so-called parental rights protesters who tried to march on the LAUSD school board meeting in session. Parents' rights? They want to strip LGBTQ people of their humanity. They want the right to force their dark ages, biblical patriarchy, and lunatic QAnon insanity on children and on everyone. They're targeting school boards from Glendale to Chino to Temecula, and they terrorized Saticoy Elementary School last June for reading a book to children that says it's okay to have 2 mommies. This is the kind of fascist momentum that leads to things like the murder of Lori Carlton in Lake Arrowhead just days before this march. Killed for refusing to take down the LGBTQ flag in front of her store. The LAPD used violence against those of us protecting LGBTQ rights. Their violence against us is totally illegitimate and should not be accepted by anyone. That is why I will be suing them. That is why the officer, who can be seen in video, going off with completely unhinged violence, the one in these images right here, needs to be fired now. Many more people need to step up to defend the rights and lives of people who are under attack by racist, women-hating, anti-LGBTQ thugs in and out of government. We in the Revolution Club are leading and organizing people to do that as part of working for a real revolution and a whole new emancipating way to live. The points of attention for the revolution, the basis on which we're uniting people to build up these defense forces, say, we fight for a world where all the chains are broken. Women, men, and differently gendered people are equals and comrades. If you agree with that, join us.
A whole new way to live and a fundamentally different system outlines a new society where instead of violating people's rights, instead of sicking police out in the streets on people who are standing up for a better future, the institutions of the revolutionary society would back people up to end all discrimination, to protect the rights of people, to live, and not just not be demonized, but to live in a world community of human beings. And we are fighting today to make a revolution to get to that society. And we are working to organize people through this, in the face of this attack, to wake up and look that it is not going to come from voting for Democrats. Here in LA, we have them, and they're still doing this. In the White House, you got them, and Biden brags about funding the police, and Bass complies by funding the police who carry out the violation of the rights of people who are standing up to protect people. No, it's got to be the people who are heartsick, the people who want a better future, getting with the Revcoms now to fight the power and transform people for revolution. To get the message of revolution on the map by getting it on the wall so people know there is reason to hope. There is a future worth fighting for if you've got the heart to fight for it. And there is a force to get with in order to do that. So join with us in raising the demand to fire Officer 20068, drop the charges against Lucha Bright and the other protester arrested with her, and to join in the demand to file suit against the LAPD for violating people's rights last Tuesday.
The revolutionary leader and author of the New Communism, Bob Avakian, has said, instead of fighting and killing each other, what people need to be doing now is uniting to defend each other, opposing all unjust violence, not launching attacks on anyone, but at the same time, not allowing the police or civilian fascist thugs to wantonly brutalize and murder people. And people need to do this as part of building up the forces for revolution. That's my statement. Thank you.
Now we're going to go to the Revolution Club in Chicago. A month ago, on July 27th, on the RNL Show, episode number 158, we featured Rafael Kadaris, a regular correspondent on this show, taking down that fascist Jason Aldean song, Try It in a Small Town.
Fascist country singer and wannabe thug Jason Aldean just released a new song, which has already gotten tens of millions of views, called Try That in a Small Town. This is a straight-up white supremacist lynching song, and it's a rallying cry for civil war. A lot of people have condemned it for being racist, which it is, but if you don't get the fascist political violence at the heart of it, you don't get where this is going. Let's watch.
Sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjacking old lady at a red light, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool, act a fool if you like, cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on the flag and light it up. Yeah, you think it's tough? Well, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road.
So keep that in mind as you take in this message from the Chicago Revolution Club.
We are with the Revolution Club Chicago, and we're calling on you to step up and stand up.
This MAGA moron Jason Aldean is coming to Tinley Park, Saturday, September 9th.
Try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road.
This fascist Klansman's anthem, Try That in a Small Town, is not just another racist country song. It is a rallying cry for civil war.
These deranged assholes are serious about wiping out everyone they hate and deem as illegitimate. We are even more fucking serious about making a revolution to eradicate the system that spawns all this madness.
We are the Revcoms. And if you are sick and tired of all of the anti-LGBTQ, white supremacist, woman-hating bullshit that is permeated throughout this atrocious society, join us Saturday, September 9th in Tinley Park, and have the heart to extinguish this poison and fight for humanity.
No more lynch mobs in and out of uniform. No more standing by while good old boys get ready for civil war. We need and we demand a whole new way to live. We need to, and we are, getting organized for a real revolution.
To get connected with the Revolution Club in Chicago and to be part of the action they're planning, go to their Instagram, revclub.chi. Watch the RNL Show next week and look at revcom.us starting Monday to see their plans and how you can connect up with them.
And we have just one more thing before we close out today's show. This is Atlas.
Last week, we aired a short documentary video based on the article, Exploitation, What It Is, How to Put an End to It, by Bob Avakian. If you haven't seen this yet, go watch it. If you've already seen it, watch it again. I was a part of producing this video, and we worked very hard on it because this video deals with a world historic question.
In a recent report about revolutionary work in Chicago, one of the people there drawn to the revolution indicated that he did not know what the word exploitation means.
What is exploitation, and how do we put an end to it? And as part of the fight to actually put an end to it, we want to urge you to both engage it, to debate it,
to get rid of exploitation and all the oppression that goes along with it. It is necessary to get rid of the system of capitalism, imperialism,
and to promote it. There are already some deep questions and comments posted, and we plan to respond to some of them probably next week. But we want to also encourage all of you to go and comment yourself, raise your questions, and do your best to answer the questions of other people who've already posted. And we hope to be able to draw from some of the insights and responses next week. And overall, this is the kind of wrangling, this is the kind of debate that we need crackling on our channel and all throughout society. And finally, we want to urge you to find creative ways to spread this everywhere. First of all, watch it, then hit that like button, leave a comment, and then share it. Share it very broadly. Spread it online on websites like Facebook and Reddit. Go find relevant groups and then post the link inside them. Text the link to your friends, text it to your family members, send it out on your email list. Send it to professors in the sociology departments. Let's get it to students and teachers in the inner city high schools. And really everybody who needs to understand that the world doesn't have to be this way. They need to dig deep into this work, along with a really important new companion piece from Bob Avakian that just came out on Revcom.us titled, Putting an End to Exploitation and All Oppression. So with that, check back next week and see which comments we choose to respond to.
All right, Sunsara, so we are coming to the end of this, the 163rd episode. We have a few more things to talk about. I do want to say that in addition to spreading that special segment that was just incredibly produced by the RNL crew, and obviously it's based on an article, a very important article by Bob Avakian. You also need to go back and watch all of episode 162. It's a really incredible episode. And let me say, what we do on this show bears repeated viewings. It's a lot of substance that's delivered in every show and in every segment, and even those of us who write it and produce it and appear on it go back and watch it to learn from what we're giving guidance to. We're giving guidance to how we can actually get out from under this oppressive system and to a radically new world through making an actual revolution. So there's some very important things that were in particular on the last episode, including stuff and the episode before, on how we could actually make a revolution. And this is your source also for getting the latest from Bob Avakian that we bring to you each week. So with that, we want to talk about a few other things. We said we'd come back to this new...
Yeah, this proclamation.
Broadsheet, yeah.
It's gorgeous. It's in print, and we had the little pamphlet before. It's been on the website, but this presents it in line with a mass demand that needs to be taken up by millions. So we want to invite you, urge you, challenge you to get involved with the Revcoms across the country this weekend, in particular, Labor Day weekend. People are out in a big way at the beaches and the parks and the streets and all of this. And we want this out among them in the tens of thousands, hand to hand, passing it out on subways and public places, posting it on the walls, spreading it on social media, gathering people to talk about and read and discuss and wrangle with what's in it. Go to revcom.us, connect with the Revolution Clubs or others in your area if you can, or take it up on your own. Download the files and spread them.
Yeah, I just want to say one or two things about this. There are, I mean, every page in here is designed to be able to be posted, but in particular, we want to show that on the front cover here, we've moved around some of the text on the inside to have a poster that reads, "In the name of humanity, in the name of the people, in the name of humanity, we can no longer afford to allow these imperialists to continue to dominate the world and determine the destiny of humanity. And it is a scientific fact that humanity does not have to live this way. We need and we demand a whole new way to live, a fundamentally different system." This gives people, this should be very provocative to people. And then on the inside, the centerfold is again with the main demand, 6 points from the Constitution for the new socialist republic in North America. This gives a completely different and opposed view to all the crap that people, the oppressive, limited system that we live under now, and gives you a sense of what is in this incredible document, the Constitution for a new socialist republic in North America. So these are things that can be put up on school bulletin boards. It should be the focus of conversation. But to get this out in the quantity that's needed, funds are needed. We need to raise a lot of funds to be able to print this in big poster form, just to print the tens of thousands. We've already printed probably close to 100,000 of these. We've really got to get out there in a big way. It's going to take a lot of money. And just before we move on, I just have to say, we really need your support for this show. So if you're not a Patreon now, become one. And as I think I said a week or two ago, we're going to be doing a Zoom call for all the patrons in the month of September. So stay tuned for that and get on board with becoming a Patreon so you're part of that important conversation.
And we can't forget, we were reminded by our crew to thank our new Patreons. We have new Patreons this month. We want to thank all of you at whatever rate. Some of you joined at $25 a month, some for $9 a month, some for, I believe, $3 a month. We have a few Patreons from last month who are new that we never thanked on air. So we want to really appreciate you. We can't do this without you. When you are a Patreon, you are part of the revolution. You are part of what we do on this show. And, we're going to be doing more things that are special for all of you who are Patreons. So please jump on board right now.
So we're going to close up right now, but I do want you to circulate, yes, the exploitation piece, but especially the interviews with Bob Avakian. There's 3 interviews are at the top of the Revcom page on YouTube. There's nothing more important that people could watch than these 3 interviews. And so with that, Sunsara, we'll see you next week. Well, maybe I'll even see you before next week.
I'll see you, yes.
But everybody else, we'll be back next Thursday night at 5 o'clock Pacific time, 7 o'clock Central time, and 8 o'clock Eastern time.
Good night.
Good night, and thanks to the RNL crew once again for all the work that you do.